Joining us now to discuss this venture and its implications for the drug industry at large is John LaMattina, senior partner at PureTech Health and the former president of Pfizer Global Research and Development. John, good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. You recently wrote an op-ed for Forbes called Mark Cuban Going to Help Big Pharma's Image. So outline for us what Mark Cuban's plan is here.
Sure. So as you said, Mark Cuban's new venture is to make very affordable generic drugs. Most Americans probably aren't aware that 90% of the prescriptions that they receive are for drugs that are no longer patented, that are generic, and so theoretically should be pretty cheap. That doesn't happen in every case. When it does work, for example, with Pfizer's Lipitor, the price went from, say, $3 a pill down to $0.25 a pill. But there are some areas where that doesn't occur. Cuban's first initiative is to take an antifungal drug called albendazole, which now sells for $222 a pill, and to manufacture it and price it at $15 a pill, which obviously would be a big break for patients and healthcare systems and payers and everything else. And he's not going to stop there. He's going to continue. He plans to make over 100 generic drugs where he can have a significant impact by making the price a whole lot lower.
So, John, what spurred Mark Cuban to get into this sector? Because, again, this is not a sector we typically would think Mark Cuban would be a part of. So what made him want to get into this?
I think it's a little bit of the outrage of people profiteering at the expense of patients. He also is not doing this for free. He has said he's going to be very transparent about the costs, and he will mark up the cost of that 15%, which, as you've already heard in one case, is going to be a lot cheaper than what currently exists. But sometimes people do things because it's the good thing to do, and I think in Cuba's case, that's what's happened.
Is the expectation here that this will actually drive down the price of generic drugs here? How exactly is this going to change the industry's image when it comes to this, John?
So most of the drug companies you know of, Pfizer, Merck, Lilly, J&J, they make proprietary drugs that are patented. Once drugs go off patent, they de-emphasize those. So they're not really in the business of selling generic drugs. But when abuse occurs, and it's happened a few years back with Martin Shkreli, the so-called pharma bro, who took the price of another antifungal drug from $13.50 to $750, and he was able to get away with it because he was the only manufacturer of that drug, Daraprim. It blew back on all of the major pharmaceutical companies who had nothing to do with it, and of whom the CEO of Merck said at the time, Ken Frazier, he is not one of us, despite the fact that Shkreli was described as a pharmaceutical executive. So whenever it comes to drug pricing, most people don't distinguish between generic drugs and proprietary drugs, and as a result, the image suffers for that. What Cuban's doing by bringing down the prices of drugs, 90% of which are generic, will, I think, reflect well and give people a real appreciation of the value that the proprietary drug companies bring to do all sorts of things, including make new vaccines to solve pandemics.
Yeah, let's talk about the vaccines here, John. Let's switch gears and talk about that, because obviously the rollout less than stellar for pretty much everybody right now, and the concern is that there's not going to be enough of those doses for people to get. The U.S. obviously setting a goal to attempt to squeeze a 6th dose of that vaccine out of Pfizer's vials, that way to get more doses out of all of that. Is that really the right move here, to squeeze another one out of that, and will that be an effective way to get this out?
Oh, absolutely. So when they made the vials, in any vaccine, usually you have a little bit of overage just in case of some spillage and things like that. And but in these are being delivered so quickly that the overage can actually lead to a 6th dose. So no, it's a great thing to do. It's really expanding the amount of doses we're getting from the initial deliveries of the vaccines, and it's a great thing to do. But interesting, you asked about some of the issues in rolling out. You need a separate kind of syringe to get the 6 doses out of a vial, and there's a backup from the company that makes these syringes. So that's been some of the delay in doing that. The backup and delays are to a certain extent somewhat explainable in that this has never been done before. You're trying to get millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people vaccinated in a very short period of time. And there's all sorts of logistical issues. States really didn't have the funds to help roll this out in their individual states until Congress passed the latest rescue bill. And so between distribution, like we're learning a lot as we're going forward, it'll smooth out. And production of the vaccines will also increase, but it's going to take a while, and it's frustrating for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, John, on top of the fact that we're dealing with new mutations and variants of the virus, especially the South African one, just based off of the reports out there, this one seems incredibly scary. Moderna, by the way, saying that they're working on a second booster shot against that new variant. Are you confident that Pfizer's vaccine will be just as effective against this variant as they're saying it would be against the other variants that are out there?
Sure. So whenever a new variant is identified, it's immediately tested in laboratories to see if the vaccines we now have are effective against the new variant. So far, things have been good. From what Dr. Fauci said yesterday, but he didn't present any data, it seems like the South African variant is treatable with the current vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna. It may not be as effective, so you might not get 95% efficacy against it, but he made it sound like it was going to be significant enough to have an impact. The beauty of this new mRNA vaccine technology is that you can come up with a new vaccine in about a month, 5 weeks. And so this is what Moderna is doing, and I presume Pfizer will be doing the same thing, and that is finding a new vaccine for the new variant and then creating, as Moderna is doing, a booster shot, which won't take 8 or 9 months, but depending on how much information the FDA will want, and depending how different the new booster shot will be, you might be able to get that out in a relatively quick bit of time, not a month or two, but it won't be 9 or 10 months either.
Yeah, by the way, the science and all of this, how they're able to do that so fast, John, is so incredible. Just a miracle that they're able to do that. John LaMattina is a senior partner at PureTech Health and the former president of Pfizer Global Research and Development. Thank you, as always, John, for joining us.